92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Kazmi 107.1 FM and across the world at 3news.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Former Chief Executive Officer of Maslock, Sedina Tamaklo Ationu, set to appear before an immigration judge in the coming days after being arrested by U.S. Marshals based on an extradition request from Ghana. Also on the program, Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman says the government will support both public and private transport operators with high occupancy buses to help solve the transport sector crisis in Accra as she embarks on a visit to strategic bus terminals. Meanwhile, drivers at some lorry terminals denying hiking transport fares in rush hours, but rather blamed the crisis on the rising cost of spare parts for fixing broken vehicles. All of these stories and some more in the next few minutes. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. The Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, has given assurances that the government will procure high occupancy buses to augment the seeming shortage of vehicles, which has led to transportation crises in recent times. Over the past few days, commuters have endured long queues at major bus terminals, leading to widespread frustration. Although the government has deployed a limited number of buses during peak hours, there are concerns that the approach is not sustainable. During a multi-stakeholder meeting with transport unions, the leadership of the unions disclosed that there were issues of shortage of buses stemming from broken down vehicles.
Recently, we have received all the reports about the stresses that commuters have seen, especially during rush hours in the morning and worse in the evening. I saw one and it wasn't amusing at all. And sometimes the problem is caused by all kinds of situations, including even exploitation by some of our own drivers. Some long queues at bus stops and terminals, congestion, and all kinds of stresses that come with this situation. And we are informed that our fellow countrymen and women, we want them to be aware that government is not blind to the situation. That we have not seen that we don't care. We think it's somebody's problem. It's everybody's problem. That is why I started by saying that we need to team up to find the solutions. We believe that the problems have solutions. I may not have any of them. You may have so many of them. And we are always willing to learn. So please continue to team up with us as we find solutions to problems that will bedevil our country. And we know the rules for the public sector in transportation. You carry the burden, if I may use the word. You carry the responsibility, and our job is to ensure that we are lightening the burden so that you can play your roles well as a private sector. This is one way that we evaluate the presence and the input of the private sector. So we depend on you for all of us to reach our workplaces, our schools, our markets, wherever we need to go. And this is also the trust of your responsibility. And we know and we expect that this responsibility will be grounded in fairness, in respect. So I want to encourage open communication for all of us to resolve the issues. So this meeting is very, very important for us.
And you heard the Vice President, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. Let's head to town where the Vice President is currently headed to assess the state of Metromas buses. Of course, we brought you that Metromas bus update, but we understand that she's currently heading towards Ayalolo within Adenta, and Lord Edwasari is our correspondent following this. He joins us live on the line. Lord, if you can tell us where you currently are and what's been happening following the Vice President's visit. Hello, Lord. Can you hear me? Okay, it looks like we have a problem with Lord Adwasari, who is currently with the Vice President. I did tell you that the Vice President since morning has been visiting some transport terminals, major ones. She, first of all, had a meeting with the Transport Ministry together with her entourage, and then after she went to the Metro Mass office where she interacted with management of Metro Mass as well as the staff members. We understand that she and her team currently are heading towards Adenta to also go and look at what is happening with the Ayalolo buses. Yesterday, we brought you exclusive visuals of over 100 buses of Ayalolo that had broken down, and apparently that had been the situation for years. We'll be bringing you an update as and when we get through to Lord Adwasari, who is currently with the Vice President as they head to Adenta to assess the situation with the Ayalolo buses, as we brought you earlier, to verify and really also have first-hand information as well. Meanwhile, drivers at the La Paz Tema station have denied transport fare hikes in rush hours, but have blamed the cost of spare parts of vehicles for the scarcity of cars in the capital, leaving masses of people in exhaustive queues daily. Christian Yale has the rest of the story.
A concern on the back of the current public transport crisis has been the alleged restriction of vehicles by some transport operators. A move may have seen as deliberate. The long queues, the stress, and the lost hours are beginning to have a huge toll on the public, and the situation is never different at the La Paz Tema station. School children and the essential workers like nurses endure the pain of long waits with no end in sight. Drivers here have denied charging unapproved fares in the morning and evening rush hours.
We don't do that here because there is discipline and strict enforcement of rules.
I then asked him about the claim that some operators are deliberately restricting vehicles, but he attributes the shortage to unavailability of spare parts for some of the vehicles.
The spare parts are costly. Also, we are unable to get some of the cars we used to operate with due to their expensive nature.
While the long queues barely move, more passengers continue to join from the other side of the road. This is the worry of many who are beginning to lose patience from the daily struggles.
You see, some people are going to work and then being in the queue for 20 minutes delays the work. So I think there should be public transport so that people can go early and then work.
Momo Kwakra, Matisse Yano Passe, the Yajimo 6 cities, right? Bayana and Umreno, a domino, a bo peso sana, ye charge do do saying the Osa Moji Debia.
And no quarrels, and a panacrano do Quanhua. On a bell circus, only a first 50 pesos. Who do circus was also to us. None so I do circle fee. In Sana Panan, so 1 year, no day, Mr. down the 10 cities. La Paz 10 cities. And the idea 1 more year.
That's what she just confirmed to me, that they are going to Accra, and usually in the morning like this they are charged 6 cedi. They are charged 6 cedi. However, in the evenings, when a lot more of people mass up at the transport terminals, they are overcharged. It take them 10 cedi, 15 cedis, and that is the situation.
And you had the Christian Yale's report, and like I did tell you, we'll be getting some more on that visit with by the Vice President to Ayalolo bus station at Adenta. Lord Adwasari is my colleague who is currently with the Vice President. Lord, if you can tell us where you've reached now and whether there have been any interactions at all.
Right, Beatrice, so we are presently at Adenta, one of the Ayalolo stations, I must say. Prior to this phase, we were at the Metro Mass Transit headquarters, where the Vice President engaged workers. Early on, the Managing Director, Susan Kali, indicated that Metro Mass, for example, used to have over 1,000 buses. As it stands now, just a little over 400 buses are working. And despite this However, they've been able to make more money. And so he prayed that, or pleaded with government to come support, because said in the event that they have more buses, it means that they can do a lot more. Now, that was one factor that led the Vice President to commend the staff and indicated that Metro Mass shouldn't be a place where buses come to break down. It cannot be the case that for all the buses that Metro Mass has, it's operating at just 60%. So she indicated that government is committed to retooling and helping fix the present buses and also supply additional buses. Before they go to Metro Mass, Beatrice Adu recall that early on, the transport unions, as well as the transport minister and David, they had a multi-stakeholder meeting, if you like, where the transport unions put to the fore some of the concerns that have come to the fore because of the transportation crisis that has been experienced these past few days. For example, they indicated that it's not a case that they are hoarding or they have pulled back some of the buses, for which reason there seems to be a shortage of buses. They indicated that a lot of the buses need to be retooled. They need to be repaired because a number of them are broken down. They indicated that, for instance, the last time they were supplied with buses was 2016, and since then all they've had to do is try to maintain the buses that they've had. So between then and now, about 10 years, they've been trying to manage the buses that they've had. So they indicated that they would want to work with the Transport Ministry or the government essentially to serve the populace, but this is one challenge or hindrance that is limiting them. Now, the Vice President again indicated that looking at the situation right now, the queues, especially in the capital, things are looking very awry, and so they need to be addressed. It indicates that government is very much after the task and is working to retool and supply more buses. He actually indicated that basically an assurance that government is going to supply or provide high occupancy buses to augment or support the current number of buses in the system. And so basically, presently at the Ayalulu, taking where she needs some leadership and basically have a first view and assess the situation, and then we'll proffer some relief or suggestions on how to resolve the situation as it is presently.
Did I hear you say that you had arrived at Adenta to go look at what's happening at Ayalulu as well?
Indeed, that is what we are presently at Ayalulu. So they're having a closed-door meeting with leadership, and then for instance, she's going to address us and see what the situation is.
But what would you say was the reaction when the entourage got to the Ayalulu compound?
So basically, from the Transport Ministry through to the Metro Mass headquarters and then Ayalulu, it's just been joy, I should say. They've been very pleased to meet her. You see a lot of people coming out to meet her, refreshing views, I should say, and people are very pleased to see her. So you can see that the air is that everybody is on board to try and resolve the situation, which is not amusing at all because of the cutbacks or the sufferings, I should say, that has affected the populace of communities and everything.
Thank you very much, Lord Edwasari. He's my colleague currently with the Vice President as she visits some transport terminals and stakeholders as part of efforts to get first-hand information and resolve this transport crisis currently facing the country, especially the capital city. President of Imani Africa, Franklin Kujo, has proposed the inclusion of accomplished Ghanaian expatriates in the Presidential Advisory Group on the economy to enhance Ghana's global economic engagement. President John Mahama has constituted the advisory group to provide strategic direction for Ghana's economic recovery and long-term growth. The group is chaired by the President himself, with Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman as a member, alongside former Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Kwabena Duffuor, among others. But Imani Africa would want broader consultation. Take a listen.
I think the group really, the committee, could have also benefited from people who were, at this stage where we are, we want to open many doors, right? We want, there are globally renowned Ghanaians as well. I mean, I felt that maybe one or two of them could have been part of the board. But you see, sometimes when the going gets tough, you need people who can actually go knock doors, open doors, and talk to people. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And the last of Bernard Mensah, the former Bank of America guy. Yeah, I mean, there's an Aquaba guy. I mean, I hope Patrick Ewa. I mean, you know, this is the president's list, and I think it's a good list. I am just suggesting that maybe an additional Ghanaian expert who has actually seen the world.
And you heard that the president of Imani Africa, Franklin Kojo. Former CEO of the Microfinance and Small Loan Center, Maslock, Sedina Tamaklu, has been arrested and detained in the United States following an extradition request from Ghanaian authorities. A statement signed by Ghana's ambassador to the United States, Victor Emmanuel Smith, confirmed that Madam Tamaklu was arrested by U.S. Marshals on January 6, 2026, and has since been kept in detention at the Nevada Southern Detention Center. And the embassy explained that the arrest was carried out in response to an extradition request submitted to U.S. authorities by Ghana sometime in July 2024. Acting on that request, U.S. law enforcement officials placed in custody to await court proceedings. The statement, however, did not provide details about the specific charges or the timeline for her court appearance, but indicated that she is being held pending her day in court. The former Maslock CEO was sentenced to 10 years in hard labor after being found guilty of 78 counts of causing financial loss to the state, but escaped to the U.S. I'm joined on the phone line by lawyer Christian Hesse. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Beatrice, for having me. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The extradition request was made in July 2024. Why, in your opinion, do you think it took so long before her detention?
Okay, all right. Just as I have said, there's an extent law can go for the baton to be handed over to what we call political will. So even though her matter was decided by a court of competent jurisdiction sometime in 2024, it meant that there ought to have been a political will to have extradited her to Ghana. Unfortunately, that did not happen until now that she's been detained through extradition request by this current government, hence her current situation.
Again, another interesting development is that she was arrested and detained on the 6th of January, and we are now hearing about it.
So it's about the flow of communication and whether government was communicated to as of the immediate time she was arrested and onward transmission to the general public. So probably there was a communication gap.
Communication gap, you say. How likely is she to be extradited to Ghana now that we have at least a bit of understanding into what's happening with her in the U.S.?
Yeah, so similar to Ms. Oforiatta, any fugitive, we say fugitive because once you come under extradition, that person is termed as fugitive of the law. So she would have her day in court, and for her to put up any defense she so deems fit. The most successful defense under the extradition laws or treaty is political persecution, and that would cause the extradition to fail. But since her case is so peculiar, I think it is not related to that charges.
And we just lost him there. We're trying to re-establish contact with him and bring you that conversation. Meanwhile, we do know that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Unit has described Ghana's former Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, as, quote, an illegal alien, and this follows a request by Media General asking some questions, but you do understand that the ICE also said in that response to our request earlier that the former finance minister's conduct amounts to a violation of U.S. immigration law, which could result in deportation because he had and has overstayed his permitted admission. An ICE spokesperson provided this clarification in a correspondence with my colleague Joseph Akable. Let me just bring you some more as regards the response to our questions earlier that Kenneth Nanaya Oforiatta is an illegal alien from Ghana that is facing corruption and corruption-related charges in his home country. He entered the United States on May 28, 2025 on a visitor's visa with an expiration date of November 27. Oforiatta overstayed his permitted admission. He has been issued a notice to appear and will remain in ICE custody. He will be given due process before a Justice Department immigration judge. The Trump administration has been abundantly clear. Aliens must respect our laws or face the consequences. Overstaying a visa is an immigration law violation that can result in deportation. So those are the responses we got from exposed person for ICE as regards the former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta. Now, as the presidential primaries of the opposition New Patriotic Party draws closer, aspirants are intensifying the campaigns to rally the support of party delegates. Former Minister of Education and Member of Parliament for Bosumtwe, Dr. Adu says he has plans to make the party more attractive, warning that the National Democratic Congress is gradually overtaking the NPP's appeal, a trend he believes must be reversed. Dr. Adu made these remarks while addressing delegates in the Ashanti region as part of his campaign tour to woo support ahead of the party's presidential primary scheduled for the 31st of January 2026.
We are man penina so amoni anko party for ni ye die ho empanifo na ba pen won be ye wabro wo be fi so na wa party for bu ofu ade ba ko amen so me be man pani amen ni se afi bia na teacher ministers ene mpanifo ni nyina awon makọ constituency bia no ma ye meetings say na de Ghana for aka no o ma tie afiri mo ho near Hamon or my theatre mo or mobile report either April. May catch them all the Mahunti and many other system. They are near home. I'm a party for a year, party Yahoo Denver Coffin. Because I won't know we are a party Amo and some say there was special health insurance, Obeji and not the party matriarch. I can't get a bind there no. They are buying to me, yeah, health insurance every day, every month. Especially a year party mu ye do na party no ho ya dan akono ye nana no so ya dan atnam and now ko papa bi anabonti obi a send this t-shirt no na ho yeah MQ twa mu na nkofo ndri send this t-shirt aho and then nyame amwa ye ndc be yakọ no arehusam ye mani e nana no so mu dwan enu nti na me dem say eba university ehwe no a University, free university education.
And you have the MPP presidential aspirant and former education minister Dr. Yao Ose-Duchum in summary in Chi saying that the MPP must work harder to ensure that the NDC doesn't take the appeal of the NPP, and in the latter part of the voice you heard earlier, he's saying that if and when he becomes the flag bearer, he is going to ensure that education is made free. That's when he passes through the election and becomes president. If Ghanaians vote for him. Still on politics, the national chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, popularly known as General Mosquito, has shifted his nationwide thank you tour to the Bono East region, bringing a message of gratitude and a listening ear to the party's grassroots. The tour, which is traversing various regions across the country, is designed to formally thank party faithful for their dedication during recent political cycles and also to gather first-hand data on the developmental gaps plaguing local communities. Some more here, and the Western region is in a healthcare emergency with no intensive care unit to serve the over 2 million people and at least 3 emergency cases per day. The challenge is real, but can the regional ministers hold a bold plan backed by major mining companies turn things around? The answer may lie in a critical funding push. Irama Smith tells us more in the story.
Serving a population of over 2 million people, the Western region faces a critical healthcare gap. It has no intensive care unit. Official data from the Regional Health Directorate for 2025 underscores this vulnerability, showing 1,105 emergency cases, about 3 per day, and 39 referrals of critically ill patients. In response, the Western Regional Minister, Joseph Nelson, is partnering with the Takoradi Hospital to bridge this gap. Concurrently, the minister has launched an initiative to secure a facility dubbed Takoradi Hospital ICU project for the region as it awaits the full completion of both the regional hospital and the Fionkwanta Teaching Hospital. Addressing stakeholders in the mining sector on the importance of this facility and the need to support it, he noted that the nearest comparable ICU is located in the central region, which has its own challenges upon referrals.
The ICU project is a very, very important project. Everything health, as you very much know, is key. The closest you can get an ICU facility is in Cape Coast. It's a 2-bed facility. And the doctors will tell you that at any point in time when it has become necessary to make referrals, that facility will be full. And even if we had vacancy there at any point in time, traveling from here to Cape Coast on any day, even when you are healthy, is a challenge.
Mr. Nelson argued that regardless of the region's other assets, its claim to excellence is hollow without a robust healthcare system.
Health is wealth. So in spite of all that we have, without a good health delivery system, we can't even proudly say that the best comes from here, because the human resource that we have and for what we want to use that resource for will very much depend on having some good health, i.e. also having a certain system in place that ensures that even when we fall sick, we are able to get the needed remedy, the needed attention, so that we get back on track.
In the meantime, stakeholders in the region's large-scale mining sector have praised Mr. Nelson's decisive move to establish the intensive care unit, calling it a bold step for the people of the Western region and pledging their support.
Personally, I would love to commend you for taking this up to drive and ensure that the region is well equipped to respond to critical medical issues.
It's very important for the region because it's not just for public, for dignitaries or whatever. It can be anybody. Even the mines can also benefit from it.
I think it's a project worth supporting, like all my colleagues have said, and we all would have to support in one way or the other to get it done so quickly because our health cannot wait.
Irama Smith found that report from the Western region. Let's quickly go to the Ayalolo bus terminal here in Adenta, where the Vice President is interacting with staff members of the... We'll just take that very briefly before we wrap up.
Amasaman and then Pokuase, we have been able to reclaim or take back all those terminals in order for us to operate these buses. Again, if you look at the very year these buses were brought, 2016 up to now, it's about 10 years about there. That tells you clearly that the buses are aging. And then these buses are also relying on fuel. So the good news is that it takes 70% of our operational costs for the payment of fuel on these buses on daily. And I can mention figures here. And for the avoidance of that, we are going for electric buses, for which my sector minister, together with myself and the deputy, we had tried as much as possible to go for a grant from the Spanish government, for which we are still on it. And then I'm pretty sure someone next month there about we should be able to get a no objection letter from the Ministry for Transport. And once that one is hard, then we'll be able to push, Ministry for Finance. And once that one is hard, then we'll be able to push our matters through in order for us to get the electric buses to augment the operation of these buses without any problem.
And you had there an official at the Ayalolo bus terminal giving updates on what the situation is and what management is doing to deal with the Ayalolo bus issues. I did tell you earlier that yesterday we brought you that update of over 100 of the buses there grounded. We'll bring you some more in our subsequent bulletins. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us on the Midday News today on 3FM 92.7. Log on to 3news.com for more news. Good afternoon.
Lifestyle radio station.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, fuel prices fall again as oil and star oil / petrol and diesel prices driven by cedi strength and lower global product prices. Meanwhile, Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, COMAC, attributes latest fuel price cut to stiff competition. We'll hear from the Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Riversing Opong.
The competition in the space now is very keen and keenly competed. As a matter of fact, even came up at the board meeting today at the COMAC level.
Plus, IMF to maintain surveillance rule after Ghana exits ECF support program. I am Michael Obodu. Details of these and many other stories coming up shortly. Please stay. Thank you so much for your time. Now straight into our top story. And some oil marketing companies have begun reducing fuel prices at the pumps from today, January 16, 2026, following industry projections of more than a 3% drop in petroleum product prices for the current pricing window, largely on the back of a stronger cedi and lower international product prices. This news desk report has the details.
Fuel prices at the pumps are falling again, with major oil marketing companies implementing reductions from today, January 16, 2026. The second largest player in the downstream oil sector, GOL, led the cuts early this morning, reducing the price of petrol from 10 cedis 99 pesos to 9 cedis 99 pesos per litre. Diesel has also dropped from 11 cedis 96 pesos to 11 cedis 21 pesos per litre. In a statement, GOL said the reductions apply to 150 selected service stations nationwide as part of efforts to deliver added value to customers while regular prices remain at other outlets. Market leader Star Oil has also announced price cuts, with petrol now selling at 9 cedis 97 pesos per litre and diesel at 10 cedis 97 pesos per litre at most of its stations. Industry sources say the reductions are being driven by declining prices of finished petroleum products and the continued appreciation of the Ghana cedi, which strengthened by 5.71% in the current pricing window. This is the second reduction in fuel prices at the pumps this month.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. And joining us via phone is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, Duncan Amwa. Duncan, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure this is the kind of news you want to hear, not so?
This is indeed the kind of news Ghanaians, even outside the country, equally happy to hear. But Michael, kudos really to the two forerunners. You talk of Goel, who clearly have decided to now take the price war to the leader, Star Oil. Again, you also have Star Oil saying, look, we will not be displaced. If ever at the start of deregulation in 2015, somebody had predicted a day like this to come, I would have been a bit skeptical, because the fear really was that we'll get cartels forming and deciding, on prices in boardrooms so as to maximize or optimize profits. But what you're seeing now is a situation where the companies are realizing that indeed price is something that the consumer is very sensitive to at this point. And so they have decided to give the consumer the most efficient of prices that they can. And I am happy that for the first time in a long while, fuel prices have dropped below the 10 Ghana cedi threshold. It's even now lower than the $1 1 liter rule that we previously knew. And that for us is very good news.
Exactly. But the question now is that we've seen some marginal depreciation of the the cedi against the US dollar. And as I speak to you at the moment, a cursory glance at global crude prices, you will see somewhat of an uptick compared to the previous pricing window. Does that mean that we are likely to see prices go up again slightly in the next window?
Michael, the geopolitical development cannot be wished away, and the effect it does have on eventual pricing cannot also equally be wished away. And so where you find the United States seizing some of the oil tankers that it shouldn't normally go after, Russia deciding to go do a blockade of the Caspian Sea, it should tell you that we may be getting into some, difficulty eventually with the supply side of the petroleum, demand supply bit. What that means is that prices may inch up in the coming days. Fortunately for us, we have enough in country, but it calls for one or two things to be done. We've gone to sleep on these things for quite some time, and I think that we should point this out to authorities. Semoyo Refinery has made every effort to come back on stream. Unfortunately, it is a very old plant. You would need to get a reformer unit that is able to give you the kind of octane rating numbers that you need to be able to compete with what the BDCs are important.
Sure thing.
You would equally need to be able to remove the high sulfur count in your diesel that you put on the market. So a desulfurizing unit is also necessary.
So at this point, really, we need to get Tema back on track. Unfortunately, we'll have to end it here with you, Duncan. Sorry, that's all time will allow us on our interview with you. That was Duncan Amwa. He is the Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana, COPEC, bringing us his perspective on the recent or the just announced reduction in fuel prices. Meanwhile, the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, COMAC, says the recent fall in fuel prices is partly due to stiff competition amongst industry players. However, its chief executive, Dr. Iverson Opong, has warned that the trend could encourage illegal activities. He's urging the authorities to remain vigilant to prevent such activities.
The competition in the space now is very keen and keenly competed. As a matter of fact, it even came up at the board meeting today at the COMAC level. But it's something that is inevitable. It might be even keen, much more keenly, care is not taken, because the competition to attract consumers and the market is very high, looking at the number of OMCs and LPGMCs we have in the country and the number of filling stations we have, and that has risen up with time. It comes up with the good side and also with the bad side. The good side obviously will be the consumer happy, or even the politician happy about it, to have the market bringing down. We have, and necessarily also above the floor price. So that works. But just that we also don't want this to bring a lot of illegal situations in the space. We've already seen some satellite of illegal fuel movements. Along the value chain, which I believe we need to have a quick chat with MPA and national security to see solutions towards them.
That was the chief executive of the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies, COMAC, speaking there. Now, as Ghana looks ahead to the period beyond its International Monetary Fund program, the fund has clarified that its engagement with the country will continue even after the conclusion of the extended credit facility. IMF representative in Ghana, Dr. Adrian Alta, said the relationship between Ghana and the fund will not cease once the country exits the IMF-supported program. His comments come against the backdrop of increased public discussion about Ghana's economic trajectory after the IMF arrangement, which has significantly influenced fiscal policy direction, debt restructuring efforts, and broader macroeconomic reforms in recent years. Dr. Alta explained that some of the IMF's core functions apply regardless of whether the country is under a lending program. That's how we end today's edition of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more business stories, please visit our website. It's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Ubudu. Thank you for listening. As always, please stay safe. Up next is Urban Blend and Black Rasta. Don't stand by. Stay tuned.